Shalom and good day all. This is Tehillim29 back again for the Super Sons Fortress of Attitude crossover with Rainbow Press and Comics, to which we cover Action Comics issue 1056 with Philip Kennedy Johnson. We also have Dan Jurgens, who is working on the Lois and Clark Volume 2. And we have the story on Steel, or the character of Steel, for story number 3. So the first two stories will basically be covered in the Rainbow Press and Comics, but the middle story will be covering the Super Son, one of our favorite Super Sons, and that's John Samuel Kent. So moving into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Mainly the first story it is connected to which I give it a 7 out of 10. Now I'll go through each of these stories individually and also cover some of the things that happen as we look around pretty much the whole story, then move on to the next story and then finish off with the last. So as the story begins, we have Superman going up against Cyborg Superman. And as we see throughout the story, he also tries to put the Super Twins in danger. And Metallo tries to help out as well. We end up having a number of the characters putting in an effort, including the twins, or the Philosian twins. And I must admit, move these Philosian twins onto someone else, not Superman. The story continues as the fight continues. We get to see a little bit more happen as John Henry Irons comes in to join the fight. We move into A-Town in Metropolis as we get to see what's happening with Connor Kent, as well as the other members connected to the Superman family. It's really nice to see Keenan Kong make an appearance. And as we look over Metropolis, we get to see some of the things that have been happening in this time period. And I do totally agree that this art here, which is meant to represent members of the Superman family, is one meant to be King Kong and the other one Connor, or is it meant to be someone else? Certainly fix that up in your art. The story continues and we move into Steelworks Tower. Start to draw towards the end and we get to see what is happening at Blue Earth headquarters and who is leading it. We of course meet the leader. We're not too sure who it is. Someone seems to think that it might be Black Alice, but we'll find out when the next issue comes out. So for this story, I give a 7 out of 10. The key locations that played out were Metropolis, the Racine Graveyard, A-Town, and also the Steelworks Tower. Cast of characters consisting of Superman, Cyborg Superman, the Philosian twins, Supergirl, Connor Kent, Steel, Metallo, Keenan Kong, and Calyx. And for the art, I gave a 7 out of 10. As we move into the next story, carried by Dan Jurgens, finally into our Super Sons related one, we get to see where John Samuel Kent has been taken. And Dan Jurgens bringing in the super dad for the job to go and save John Samuel Kent. And of course we have Gilvana trying to use her ways of manipulation in the situation to try to get the upper hand over Superman. Really nice to see that we have John scoping out where he actually is and what he can do. We of course get a bit of a scene to which Superman is getting to work, but on top of that we have John Samuel Kent using his smarts and of course it upsetting his captor. We get to see a little bit more take place until he puts in his all. For the art in this, I gave a 9 out of 10 as I really enjoyed it. For the location in the story, we had the planet Pluton, or Pluhuon. The cast of characters consisting of John Samuel Kent, Gilvana, and last but not least, Superman. For the overall story rating, I give it a 9 out of 10. I really wish I could follow this in its own individual comic because it would get high priority over the Adventures of John Kent run. Time to move into the last but not least, the story around John Henry Irons for the last Rainbow Press and Comics story, as to which we get to see him get a visitor out of Mr. Terrific. Of course, a bit of conflict happens between them, or is this to say a training room of sorts? So after the heat's died down, they have a bit of a talk between each other. And I must admit, this is probably one of the best scenes in this. And we've got the Hall of Hammers. Absolutely incredible. And then we get to what's happening outside of Steelworks. And of course, John Henry Irons taking on a bit of a black villain of sorts. And of course, this is quite interesting and really nice to see. And last but not least, towards the end, for this story, I gave it a 7 out of 10. For the art, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, as I actually enjoyed it a little bit more than the first story. The location it took place was in Steelworks, and of course we had the Hall of Hammers making its appearance, and I really enjoyed that. We had John Henry Irons and Mr. Terrific, and of course his daughter make an appearance. But for the overall story rating, I gave it a 7 out of 10. We'll see you again at Super Sun's Fortress of Attitude, and until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.